I was at brunch when my best friend Emily asked, "What do you think of Black Mirror?" I laughed. "Oh man, that episode where the Prime Minister has to do it with the pig got me messed up." Suddenly, Emily started hyperventilating. She crashed to the floor and someone screamed, "She's pregnant! Someone call 911. I dropped beside her trying to help, but she looked at me with pure terror and whispered, "How could you say that?" before the EMTs rushed her away. I figured that the pregnancy hormones were making her extra sensitive. And by the time I got to the hospital, I'd already stopped at CVS and loaded up a basket with everything a hormonal pregnant woman could need. The woman behind the desk looked at my gift basket and her face changed completely. "You really shouldn't be here." Before I could explain about the pregnancy supplies, security was already grabbing my arms and physically escorting me to the parking lot. All I wanted was to give my pregnant friend some tea. The next morning, I called around until I found a therapist who specialized in pregnancy hormones. Dr. Alice Swan came highly recommended and cost $300 per session. I felt so guilty that I prepaid for 6 sessions and gave them Maya's information. 2 hours later, my phone rang. "I can't accept blood money." Dr. Swan's voice was ice cold before she hung up. My credit card was refunded within the hour. By Wednesday, I was desperate. Emily loved prenatal yoga more than anything, so I drove to her studio to surprise her with a $500 gift card. The instructor saw me through the glass and ran outside to block the door. "She's been coming here since the assault." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What assault?" "She's pregnant. I'm trying to help with her hormones." The woman looked at me with complete disgust and went back inside, locking the door behind her. That's when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Is it true you said something about a pig?" My stomach dropped. "Mom, it was just about a TV show. Black Mirror. That one episode." The silence stretched for 3 seconds before she hung up. I tried calling back, but I was blocked. My own mother blocked me. 20 minutes later, I got removed from every group chat I was in with Maya. The only message I saw before getting kicked was, "I can't believe you'd bring that up knowing what happened." My friend Claire texted me privately. "That wasn't about a TV show and you know it." When I tried to grab coffee at our usual place, the manager met me at the door. "After what you triggered on the anniversary, you're not welcome here." He wouldn't say another word. Just stood there until I left. I posted on Facebook asking if Emily was okay and mentioning I had pregnancy care items for her. The comments made me sick. "Delete this. Today of all days. This is sick." And 14 years ago today, before the post got reported and removed. Everyone was acting like I'd committed some unforgivable crime, but nobody would tell me what I'd done. Maya's husband was the only one to text me back. "She's been in therapy for 2 years. She was finally doing better." Then blocked. I ran into our mutual friend Violet at Target and cornered her by the shampoo. "Please just tell me what's happening." She tried to leave, but I blocked her cart. Emily changed her last name 18 months ago, after the camp tragedy. She watched it happen. Then she literally ran away from me. That's when the certified letter arrived. From the law offices of Smith & Associates. Cease and desist for intentional infliction of emotional distress regarding the Waterside Lake incident. I'd never heard of Waterside Lake in my life. I typed Waterside Lake incident 2 years ago into Google with shaking hands. The first result changed everything. 8-year-old boy dies at Waterside Lake summer camp. Sexual assault victim's sister watches helplessly. I clicked the article feeling like I might throw up. The details were horrifying. An 8-year-old boy had been assaulted by a teenage camp counselor. When the boy tried to tell his sister, the counselor had screamed that he was lying, that he was dirty, called him a pig in front of everyone. The boy had run into the lake crying and drowned while his sister Emily tried desperately to save him. The counselor kept screaming, "Dirty pig," even as they pulled his body from the water. My hands shook as I typed out a text. "Maya, I just found out about Waterside Lake. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Please let me explain." I hit send and waited. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then my phone exploded. 17 voicemails in 6 minutes. I played the first one. "You think sorry fixes this?" Maya's voice was raw with rage. "You knew. You just wanted to hurt me." The second was worse. "I trusted you with everything, and you used it against me on his death day." By the 5th message, she was sobbing. "You're a calculating, evil monster." By the 15th, I had already decided to show her just how calculating I could really be. I grabbed my phone and opened the Notes app while still sitting in my car outside my apartment building. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The anger had turned into something cold and hard. I started typing out every single way I could expose what was really happening here. Screenshots of Maya's crazy messages calling me evil. Maybe I'd send them to that gossip blog everyone in town reads. I typed out ideas about calling Emily's yoga studio with concerns about her mental state. My fingers moved fast across the screen. Each idea I wrote down was worse than the one before it. Anonymous tips to her work. Posts in local Facebook groups asking if anyone else had noticed Emily acting strange. Contact her family members she hadn't talked to in years. The list grew longer and nastier with each passing second. My phone kept buzzing with more notifications while I typed. Instagram showed 3 more people had blocked me. The book club group chat I'd been in for 2 years kicked me out. Facebook notifications popped up showing people I hadn't talked to since high school were unfriending me. Someone removed me from the neighborhood watch group. My college roommate blocked me on LinkedIn. Even the local buy and sell group banned me. The isolation was spreading through every single part of my online life, like someone had sent out a mass message telling everyone to cut me off. I closed the revenge list and pulled up the Waterside Lake article again on my phone. This time I forced myself to read every single word slowly. The 8-year-old boy had been crying when he ran to his sister Emily after the counselor touched him. The counselor had grabbed him and screamed that he was lying, called him a dirty pig in front of all the other kids, said pigs like him deserved what they got. The boy had broken free and run straight into the lake, still crying. Emily had jumped in after him but couldn't reach him in time. The counselor kept screaming dirty pig over and over, even as they pulled his small body from the water. Other campers said Emily had to be physically restrained from attacking the counselor. She'd been 14 years old. My stomach turned, but I kept reading. The counselor had been arrested but released on bail. Died in a car accident 3 months later before the trial. Emily's family moved away immediately after. The cease and desist letter was still sitting on my passenger seat where I'd thrown it earlier. I picked it up and read through the legal language more carefully this time. Intentional infliction of emotional distress regarding the Waterside Lake incident. The law firm was threatening further action if I made any additional contact. They could sue me for damages, get a restraining order. This wasn't just social consequences anymore. This could destroy my finances and maybe even lead to criminal charges. The fear started mixing with my anger as I realized how bad this could actually get. I searched for the camp counselor's name from the article on every platform I could think of. Facebook showed nothing. Instagram had no results. Twitter came up empty. LinkedIn had 0 matches. I tried different spellings and variations but found nothing except the same few news articles about the incident. No family members posting about him, no memorial pages, no old social media accounts. It was like he'd been completely erased from the internet after he died. My frustration built with each failed search. Part of me had wanted to find something. Anything I could use to show that I wasn't the real villain here. I opened Facebook and started drafting a post explaining everything. Typed out how this was all a huge misunderstanding about a TV show reference. Found screenshots of Black Mirror episodes online and attached them. Added a long explanation about how I'd never heard of Waterside Lake before today. How I was just trying to help my pregnant friend with hormones. My thumb hovered over the post button for 30 seconds. Then 40. Then a full minute. Something in my gut told me this would make everything worse. I deleted the whole thing without posting it. I found Emily's number in my contacts and hit call before I could think too hard about it. Maybe if I could just talk to her directly without Maya interfering. The phone didn't even ring. An automated message came on immediately saying this number was no longer accepting calls from me. She'd blocked me completely. There was no way to reach her directly anymore. The wall Maya had built around Emily was total. I opened my email and started typing a message to Dr. Swan. Explained that I genuinely hadn't known about Emily's trauma. That I'd been trying to help with what I thought were pregnancy hormones. That the therapy sessions I'd paid for were meant as a real gift. Not whatever she thought they were. I hit send and waited. Within 60 seconds, an auto reply came back. Do not attempt further contact or legal action will be taken. Even the therapist was threatening me with legal consequences now. I started writing an email to my mother trying to explain the Black Mirror reference. Typed out a whole explanation about the TV show and how it was just an unfortunate coincidence. Deleted it and started over with a different approach about how everyone was overreacting. Deleted that too and tried a third version focusing on how I couldn't have known about something that happened before I even met Emily. None of them sounded believable even to me. The Black Mirror explanation seemed fake. The coincidence felt impossible. The timing was too perfect to be random. I saved all 3 drafts without sending any of them. That night I tossed and turned in bed for hours. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little boy's face from the news article photo. Then I'd see Emily laughing at the party right before I made that stupid joke. My chest got tight and I couldn't breathe right. I kept checking my phone every few minutes even though nobody was texting me anymore. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up trying to sleep and went to the kitchen to make coffee. My laptop was still open on the counter showing those unsent email drafts to my mom. I closed it and just sat there in the dark kitchen until the sun came up. My phone buzzed with a work notification, and I grabbed it hoping someone was finally talking to me again. The email from HR made my stomach drop. They wanted to see me tomorrow at 9 sharp about our company's online conduct policy. The message mentioned reviewing social media activity that could damage our reputation. Someone must have screenshot my Facebook post before it got deleted. I started shaking because I needed this job to pay rent, and now even my work was getting involved in this mess. I went to my home office and found the cease and desist letter in my bag. I spread it out on my desk and grabbed a yellow highlighter. Every scary legal phrase got marked up. Intentional infliction of emotional distress got 3 circles around it. Further legal action got underlined twice. Harassment and stalking behaviors made me feel sick. The more I read it, the more I realized this wasn't just people being mad at me online. This was real legal trouble that could ruin my life. I started calling law firms from Google searches at exactly 8 when they opened. The first 3 said they didn't handle this kind of case. The 4th one transferred me around to different people who kept asking me to explain the whole story over and over. Finally, I got connected to Ray Pennington's assistant who said he specialized in defamation and media law. She could squeeze me in for an emergency consultation that afternoon for $500. I booked it immediately because just having an appointment made me feel less panicked about everything falling apart. The law office was in a fancy building downtown, and I got there 20 minutes early. I sat in the waiting room going over my story in my head. Maybe if I explained about the Black Mirror episode clearly enough, Ray would see this was all a big misunderstanding. People were overreacting to an innocent TV reference, and once everyone calmed down, it would blow over. The pregnancy supplies I bought for Emily were still in my car, and I kept thinking about how I just wanted to help my friend. After the appointment, I went out to my car and grabbed the gift basket from the trunk. I brought it inside and set it on my kitchen counter. Looking at all the teas and lotions and pregnancy books I'd carefully picked out made me feel weird. What I thought were thoughtful gifts now looked like evidence of something creepy. The basket sat there like proof that I didn't understand what was really happening. Ray called me into his office right on time, and I sat in the leather chair across from his huge desk. He had a legal pad and fancy pen ready, and told me to start from the beginning. I went through everything from the party joke to the cease and desist letter. He didn't interrupt once, just took notes the whole time I talked. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me with this serious expression that made my chest tight. He explained that I was facing real legal risks, including possible defamation lawsuits and harassment charges. The most important thing was to have absolutely no contact with Emily or Maya or anyone else involved. No texts, no calls, no showing up places, nothing. His tone was calm but firm, and I finally understood this wasn't going away. He had me write out a timeline of everything that happened since the party. Every text I sent, every call I made, every place I went trying to fix things. Seeing it all written down in order made me realize how it looked from the outside. All my attempts to help or explain looked like stalking behavior. The timeline showed someone who wouldn't leave Emily alone even after being told to stop multiple times. Ray reviewed my timeline and pointed out each action that could be used against me legally. He explained that any public posts about the situation could be seen as retaliation or defamation. Even defending myself online could make things worse legally. I was basically trapped into silence while everyone else could say whatever they wanted about me. The unfairness of it made me angry. But Ray said that was just how these situations worked. My only option if I really wanted to fix things was working with a restorative justice facilitator. He explained it was a process where someone neutral would help repair harm without direct contact. I didn't really understand how that would work, and felt skeptical about the whole thing. But Ray insisted it was my only choice that wouldn't risk making the legal situation worse. He gave me the name of someone named Maria Roth who specialized in this kind of work. I left Ray's office and walked back to my car through the building lobby, where a community board caught my eye with a bright yellow flyer for a trauma survivor support group meeting every Thursday at the community center. I pulled out my phone and took a quick photo thinking, maybe if I understood trauma better, I could figure out what I'd actually done wrong here. The drive home took 20 minutes, and when I got inside, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and opened our old shared Google Calendar that I hadn't looked at in months. There it was in bright red on today's date marked as Waterside Anniversary. Check on Emily. In a group calendar I'd muted back in January when all the notifications got annoying. My stomach turned as I stared at that red marker, realizing I could have known if I'd been paying any attention at all to what was going on with my friends. I clicked over to my messages and started scrolling back through old texts from the past few months looking for anything I might have missed. 3 months ago, Claire had sent me a message asking if I could check in with Emily around the anniversary date since she'd be out of town, and knew it was always hard for her. I'd left it on read and completely forgot about it until right now, staring at that unanswered text making me feel sick about how careless I'd been. I closed my laptop and sat there replaying the party conversation over and over in my mind, trying to remember exactly what happened before I made that joke about the pig. Someone had been talking about Netflix shows, and then someone else mentioned disturbing TV. And my brain just pulled up that Black Mirror reference, but now I wondered if maybe I'd heard about Emily's brother before, and somehow my brain connected those things without me realizing it. The possibility that this wasn't completely random made my chest feel tight with a kind of dread I couldn't shake. My phone buzzed with an email from HR, and when I opened it, my hands started shaking, because the meeting I thought was scheduled for next week was now moved to first thing tomorrow morning at 8, with my direct manager required to attend. The formal tone talking about urgent matters requiring immediate attention made it clear this wasn't going to be a friendly chat about my performance goals. I barely slept that night and showed up at the office 15 minutes early the next morning, where my manager was already waiting in the conference room with a stack of papers in front of her. She didn't even say good morning before she started reading from the company policy manual about conduct that could damage organizational reputation, including any behavior on or off company time that could reflect poorly on our values and mission. She explained that my actions at the party and everything after had created liability concerns for the company, especially since several employees had witnessed the incident and reported feeling unsafe about my behavior. I tried to explain that it was just about a TV show, and I never meant any harm, but she cut me off mid-sentence. "We deal with impact, not intent," she said firmly, and I could tell from her tone that nothing I said was going to change what was about to happen. The meeting lasted exactly 12 minutes and ended with her sliding a paper across the table informing me I was placed on immediate paid suspension, pending a full review by senior leadership with a final decision to come within 30 days. Walking out of that building with my laptop and desk plant in a cardboard box. While the security guard watched made me angrier than I'd been since this whole thing started, because now it wasn't just my personal life falling apart, but my professional one too. Back at home, I threw the box on my couch and sat at my computer with this dark energy building inside me as I started thinking about that camp counselor who'd done those horrible things to Emily's brother. If everyone wanted to paint me as some kind of villain for an innocent TV reference, maybe I should show them what real evil looked like by finding that counselor and making sure everyone knew exactly what they'd done. I opened Facebook and started searching for Waterside Lake groups, thinking there had to be support groups or memorial pages where I could find information about the counselor and what happened to them after the incident. I found 8 different groups for Waterside Lake families and survivors, and tried to join each one. But every single request was instantly denied with a message saying I'd been blocked from joining by the group administrators. Someone had already gotten to every single group warning them about me, which meant my search for information about the counselor was completely blocked before I even started. My phone buzzed with an Instagram notification, and when I opened it, there was a DM from an account with no profile picture and 0 followers. The message said they used to work at Waterside Lake and had documents that might interest me about what really happened that day. I stared at the screen for a full minute, trying to decide if this was some kind of trap or if someone was actually trying to help me understand. Before I could even respond, another message popped up with an attachment, and my finger hovered over it for 10 seconds before I clicked. The PDF that opened made my stomach turn as I read through pages and pages of the official incident report from the camp, with way more detail than any news article had shared. The counselor's exact words were written out in the witness statements, and seeing "dirty pig" written over and over in different testimonies made me have to run to the bathroom where I threw up everything I'd eaten that day. I came back to my phone and kept reading even though my hands were shaking, so bad I could barely hold it steady. That's when I saw it in one of the witness statements about how the counselor had been saying those words for weeks before the incident, and suddenly something clicked in my brain. I remembered sitting in Emily's kitchen 2 years ago when her cousin was visiting, and someone mentioned those exact words while Emily went completely silent and left the room. I'd been there eating chips and salsa when her cousin said something about a counselor calling kids dirty pigs, and I just kept eating like it was nothing important. The memory hit me so hard I dropped my phone on the floor and just sat there realizing I'd heard about this before and completely pushed it out of my mind. I'd filed it away as too uncomfortable to think about and never connected it to Emily, even though she'd literally left the room when it came up. The shame of knowing I could have been more careful if I just paid attention made me feel worse than anything anyone else had said to me. I opened my laptop and started typing out this long apology message to Emily, explaining how I just remembered hearing about it before, and how sorry I was for not being more aware. For an hour, I wrote and rewrote, trying to explain how I'd blocked it out and never meant to hurt her, and how I understood now what I'd done. When I finally read the whole thing back to myself, I realized every single sentence was about making myself feel better, and had nothing to do with actually helping Emily heal from what I'd triggered. I highlighted the entire message and hit delete, then closed my laptop and just sat there for 20 minutes staring at the wall. I picked up my phone and called Ray's office even though it was past 6, and he actually answered on the second ring. I told him I needed to be honest about something, and explained how I just remembered hearing about the incident before, even if I hadn't consciously connected it to Emily. He listened without interrupting, then said if I wanted to pursue any kind of restorative process, I had to be completely honest about everything, even if it made me look worse. He said trying to hide anything would just cause more harm, and I needed to accept that my actions had consequences regardless of what I remembered or didn't remember. 10 minutes after we hung up, an email came through from Ray with contact information for someone named Maria Roth, who specialized in restorative justice work. He'd already called her and given her the basic situation, and she was willing to do an initial consultation if I was serious about accountability and not just trying to make myself feel better. That same afternoon, my phone rang with a blocked number, and when I answered, Maria introduced herself in this calm, professional voice that somehow made me feel both nervous and relieved. She laid out exactly what this process would require, including absolutely no contact with Emily, full accountability for the harm I'd caused, and concrete steps toward repair that went beyond just saying sorry. Her structured approach with clear rules and expectations felt like the first solid ground I'd had since this whole thing started, even though I knew it was going to be hard. I started trying to explain my side of the story about how I didn't know about Emily's trauma, and was just making a TV reference, but Maria cut me off before I got 3 sentences in. She redirected me to focus on the impact of my actions instead of my intentions, and said we weren't going to spend time on what I meant to do, but on what actually happened to Emily. My first instinct was to get defensive and explain that intentions matter, but something in her steady voice made me stop and actually listen to what she was saying. She assigned me to write an accountability letter that focused only on my actions and their impact, with absolutely no excuses or explanations about what I intended or didn't know. The rules were simple but felt impossible as she listed them out, including no use of the word but, and no sentences that started with, "I didn't mean to," or "I wasn't aware." She said the letter needed to acknowledge specific harms, take full responsibility without deflection, and outline concrete commitments for ensuring this never happened again. After she hung up, I sat at my kitchen table with a blank piece of paper and a pen, trying to figure out how to write something that didn't include any justification for what I'd done. I spent 3 hours staring at that blank paper before I gave up and went to bed. The next morning, Maria texted me an address for a trauma support meeting happening that evening at the community center downtown. I showed up 20 minutes early and sat in my car watching people go inside carrying tissues and water bottles. The meeting room had chairs arranged in a circle, and I took a seat near the door trying to look invisible. A woman started talking about her son who died in a car accident 5 years ago, and how certain songs on the radio still made her pull over and sob. Another man described how the smell of burning leaves brought back memories of finding his brother after a house fire. Person after person shared stories about tiny things that triggered huge waves of pain. A mother talked about how people telling her to move on from her daughter's death felt like being hurt all over again. She said when people acted like her grief was too much or lasted too long, it made her feel crazy and alone. Something twisted in my stomach as I recognized myself in her words. I'd been doing exactly that to Emily by acting like she should be over something that happened just 2 years ago. The meeting ended, and I drove home with all those stories running through my head. I sat down at my kitchen table and tried writing the letter again, but kept catching myself making excuses. Every other sentence started with explaining why I didn't mean to hurt her, or how I couldn't have known. I read it back and saw how every line was really about making myself feel better, instead of taking responsibility. I crumpled it up and started over 4 more times before finally sending what I had to Maria. Her email came back 2 hours later with the document covered in red comments. She'd crossed out entire paragraphs and written notes like, "This is a justification," and "Remove this excuse," and "Focus on your actions, not your feelings." One section where I'd written about not knowing Emily's history had a big note saying, "Irrelevant to the harm caused." Maria had basically torn apart everything I'd written, but included specific examples of better wording. Instead of saying I didn't mean to trigger her, she suggested simply stating that I said something that caused her pain. She wanted me to list specific things I would do going forward instead of vague promises to do better. I spent another 3 hours rewriting based on her feedback and realized I needed actual concrete steps, not just words. I made a list of real actions I could take, like signing up for trauma awareness training online. I found a drowning prevention charity and decided to make monthly donations. I wrote down that I would maintain complete no contact with Emily unless she reached out first. I added that I would follow whatever rules my job set without arguing or trying to explain my side. Having specific commitments instead of empty apologies made the letter feel more real and honest. My phone buzzed with an email from HR marked urgent, and I opened it with shaking hands. They were warning me that any public posts about the situation on social media would result in immediate termination. The message was clear that this included Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or any other platform where I might try to defend myself. I replied acknowledging I understood, and would not post anything about what happened. Part of me wanted to argue that I should be able to tell my side, but I knew that would just make things worse. Right after the HR email, my phone lit up with a DM notification from that anonymous Instagram account. They'd sent a screenshot from my own Instagram from 8 months ago showing a comment I'd left on someone's photo. It was a picture from a birthday dinner, and I'd replied with 3 pig emojis under a photo that had Emily in the background. Seeing proof that I'd been carelessly using that specific image around her before made me feel sick. This wasn't just one random TV reference, but apparently a pattern of me being thoughtless. I went through my phone and deleted the entire folder where I'd been collecting information about the camp counselor. I'd saved articles and screenshots planning to track them down and expose what they did, but holding on to that anger wasn't helping anyone. I texted Ray telling him I was dropping any plans to find information about the counselor, and he replied saying that was the right choice. Letting go of those revenge fantasies felt like putting down something heavy I'd been carrying. I found the yoga studio gift card in my car and drove to the post office to mail it back. I wrote a short note to the studio owner apologizing for any disruption I'd caused by showing up that day. I didn't mention Emily or try to explain the situation, just said I was sorry for the disturbance and hoped the gift card could be used for someone else. Dropping it in the mailbox felt like one small thing I could actually fix. That night, I went online and found a drowning prevention organization that worked with camps and swimming programs. I set up a monthly donation of $50 in memory of Emily's brother, without using Emily's name anywhere. The charity had an option to make donations anonymous, so there would be no way for it to get back to Emily, or seem like I was trying to buy forgiveness. Making that commitment felt serious and real in a way that just saying sorry never could. Maria called me that afternoon to say she was putting together everything for Emily. She had my accountability letter printed on nice paper, along with copies of the donation receipts and training enrollment confirmations. I drove to her office and signed 3 copies of the packet, while my hands shook a little. Maria said she'd send it through Emily's husband, so there wouldn't be any direct contact from me. I went home and tried to keep busy but kept checking my phone every 5 minutes. The first day passed with nothing, and I started writing in this old notebook I found in my desk drawer. I wrote down every time I wanted to text Emily or Maya or check if they'd gotten the packet. The urge hit me about 40 times that first day, and writing it down helped me not actually do it. The second day was worse because the waiting made me anxious, and I filled 20 pages with random thoughts about boundaries and why they matter. My phone finally rang on the 3rd morning, and it was the HR manager saying they'd made their decision. She told me I was keeping my job, but with a formal written warning that would stay in my file for a year. I'd also be on probation for 6 months, which meant any small mistake could get me fired immediately. The relief of not losing my income mixed with knowing everyone at work would know what happened. Ray emailed me a copy of the response he'd sent to the cease and desist letter 2 days earlier. It confirmed I was following all their demands and listed everything I'd done to show accountability. He said the legal threat should be over now as long as I kept following the agreement completely. My phone buzzed while I was reading Ray's email and my mom's name showed up on the screen. The text just said, "Heard. Processing." And nothing else. I stared at those 2 words for probably 10 minutes trying to figure out if it was good or bad. At least she wasn't blocking me anymore, even if she wasn't ready to actually talk. Maria emailed me that evening saying Emily had received everything and had some specific conditions she wanted met. The list came through her husband and included 1 full year of no contact starting from that day. I also had to complete all the trauma training I'd signed up for and couldn't post anything online about the situation ever. The last condition was that I couldn't try to contact any of their mutual friends to talk about Emily or what happened. Maria had already drafted a formal agreement with all of Emily's conditions spelled out clearly. I printed it at the library since my printer was broken and took it to get notarized at the bank. The notary asked if I understood what I was signing, and I said yes, even though my voice cracked a little. I made copies for Maria, Ray, and kept one for myself to remember what I'd promised. Claire texted me that night with just, "Stick to the agreement and we'll see," which was the first contact from any of our friend group. Her tone wasn't warm, but at least she was leaving the door open a tiny crack for the future. The next morning, I went to get coffee and the manager stopped me at the counter. He said I could order to go, but couldn't use the tables or Wi-Fi anymore. I just nodded and ordered my usual latte without arguing or trying to explain my side. Walking out with my coffee, I saw our whole friend group at their usual table and nobody looked up. That afternoon, someone posted something about me on Facebook that wasn't true at all. I typed out this long response explaining what really happened with screenshots and everything. My finger hovered over the post button for a full minute before I remembered the agreement and deleted the whole thing. I closed Facebook and put my phone in a drawer to stop myself from going back to look. Each time I chose not to defend myself, it got a tiny bit easier to let go of the need to control the narrative. The trauma awareness course took me 4 weeks to finish since I could only do it after work and on weekends. Each module started with videos of people talking about their experiences, and I had to pause constantly because hearing their stories made my chest tight. The bystander intervention part taught specific steps like creating distractions or getting help instead of just watching bad things happen. I clicked through quiz after quiz about recognizing warning signs and understanding how trauma affects memory and behavior. When the certificate finally showed up in my email, I saved it to 3 different folders and printed out 2 copies. Saturday morning came and I drove to the community center where the water safety program met in their indoor pool area. The coordinator handed me a bright yellow volunteer shirt and showed me where to set up the kickboards and pool noodles for the kids. 8 little kids showed up for the beginner class, and I spent 2 hours helping them practice floating on their backs while the main instructor taught proper breathing techniques. One kid kept grabbing my arm every time he thought he might go under, even though the water only came up to his waist. After class, I helped stack all the equipment in the storage closet and signed up for the next 3 Saturdays on the volunteer schedule. That night, I went through my apartment and found all my Black Mirror DVDs in the entertainment center. I put them in a box along with the collector's edition I'd bought last year and drove them to the donation center drop-off bin. My Netflix account took 3 tries to cancel because they kept offering me deals to stay, but I clicked through all the retention offers until the cancellation went through. The pregnancy basket had been sitting in my closet for weeks, and I loaded it into my car with 2 bags of additional supplies I'd bought at Target. The women's shelter had a donation drop-off door on the side of the building where you could leave things without going inside. I left everything there without writing my name on anything and drove away before anyone saw me. Monday felt weird without any drama or messages to deal with. I went to work, came home, made dinner, watched some cooking show on YouTube, and went to bed at a normal time. Tuesday was the same, and by Wednesday, I started noticing how much calmer my body felt without constantly checking my phone for bad news. Thursday, I actually read a book for the first time in months, and Friday, I cleaned my whole apartment just because I had the energy. Maria's email came through Saturday afternoon while I was at the pool teaching a kid how to kick properly. She wanted confirmation that I was still following all the agreements and asked about my progress on the trauma training. I typed back a quick response listing everything I'd completed and attached the certificate as proof. Sunday morning, I decided to go hiking at the state park about an hour from my apartment. The trail map showed it went past a small lake, and I thought about choosing a different path, but decided to stick with my original plan. When I got to the section near the water, I stayed on the trail instead of going down to the shore like other hikers were doing. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes looking at the sun reflecting off the surface and thinking about an 8-year-old boy who never got to grow up. The whole walk back to my car, I kept thinking about how I'd spent so much mental energy planning revenge that never happened. All those hours writing lists of ways to hurt people back or expose them had been completely wasted when I could have been doing something useful instead. I'd been so focused on being calculating about causing damage that I never considered I could use that same strategic thinking to prevent harm. Every choice to follow the agreement instead of fighting it had slowly been teaching me that accepting consequences didn't mean accepting defeat. The volunteer work at the pool was actually making a difference for those kids learning water safety. The trauma training had opened my eyes to patterns I'd been blind to before. Even just leaving Emily alone to heal without my interference was a form of taking responsibility. My losses were real, but they were also earned through my own careless actions. The friends who cut me off, the reputation I'd damaged, the trust I'd broken, all of it was the natural result of what I'd done. Fighting against those consequences would only have caused more harm to everyone, including myself. Maybe being calculating could mean carefully planning how to rebuild myself into someone who thinks before speaking. Someone who considers impact, not just intent. Someone who recognizes that my good intentions mean nothing if my actions cause real harm. The restraint I was learning wasn't weakness, but a different kind of strength. Real growth meant accepting that I'd never get to control how others saw me. All I could control was making sure I never carelessly destroyed someone's peace again. Appreciate you sticking around and wondering through all this with me. It's been a ride sharing the journey together. Until we cross paths again. Like the video, it helps more than you think.